What's up, guys? This is the Atheist Chef, and I want to run a hypothetical by you guys, primarily to the Christians that do watch this. So let's just say your family's chilling, eating supper, doing their thing, and all of a sudden I bust in with a gun. And I tell you that I have a gun and I'm going to shoot you unless you worship me. So if you worship me, do as I say, you're going to live. Not only are you going to live, but I'm going to give you a crap ton of money. I'm actually very, very wealthy, and I can just take care of your family for everything forever. But I just want people to worship me. But if you don't, like I said before, I'm going to shoot you right in the face, and you're going to die. Now, for this hypothetical, we're going to assume that God doesn't exist. There is no gods or anything of that nature. It's just me and a gun, and you, and your family. So, likely you're very scared, very confused that all of a sudden some dude just come out with a gun and worship me. But for the sake of it, the sake of your family, the sake of your family's safety, you say, yes, I'll worship you, I'll do whatever you want. So you do so. But some of your family members, let's just say they don't. Let's say one, that really annoying cousin that's not too bright. So he says no, and I shoot him in the face, and he's dead. You are experiencing two emotions. You're a lot of emotions. You're very scared. You're pretty upset at me because I just shot your favorite cousin, quote unquote favorite, and just because I refuse to worship him. I'm sorry, because he refused to worship me. Let me say that again. He refused to worship me. But you're grateful that no one else has said no. But you're still kind of pissed at me. So the next generation comes down. And you're telling those kids are telling their kids, like, hey, look, we have this guy that has been involved in our lives. He tells us if we do what he says and worship him, he will provide for us for the rest of our lives. We'll never have to work ever again. But on the downside, if you tell him no, he's going to shoot you. And he's already killed one of your cousins, your whatever that family member is. He's killed a family member. And so, yeah, do as we say because you don't want to die. So, another generation comes down. And you tell the same story. But that third generation kind of has never met him. That got the cousin that died. Never met him. But they still kind of fear the fact that they could die too. Well, let's go 1,000 years down later. I don't even know how many generations that is. 20? 20 times 5? 50? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. 1,000 years later, all the generations of your family have been well aware of the crazed gunman that walked in their lives, and all that they had to do to be happy was just worship him and do as he said, and he took care of everything else that they ever needed. But they're also well aware of the ones that told the crazed gunman no, and he shot them. However, they're not as attached to the ones that died telling him no. They're not as close. So they're kind of sitting there saying, well, he gave them the option. He told them what it was. It's their fault if they, didn't choose to worship him. I have no problem with him. He's been doing great for me. And all of my family, we're doing fantastic. I think they're stupid if they tell him no. So let's step back a minute. You are no longer in the family. You are a third-party observer. You are a friend of the family, and they've been telling you about this guy. You know that he has been just paying for everything. He's been taking care of them for the past 1,000+ years. And that he's a really great guy. It's amazing how generous and nice and everything that he is. So you go and research everything, and you first hear that he really is. He's giving them all this money, and all you got to do is worship him and just do as he says. And you find that really neat. A little weird. He needs to be worshipped. But, okay, sure, whatever. But then you start to hear about some of the family members that have died. You hear that they died just because they've rejected him and they didn't want to worship him. And you say, well, that's kind of, well, okay, well, I don't get, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And then you go back a little bit deeper and you find out that he ransacked into people's houses, held them hostage by gunpoint, and then told them to worship him or die. And then he killed somebody right in front of them to make his point clear. He wouldn't sit back and go, oh my goodness, this guy is crazy. He just showed up in a person's house and just started killing people for not wanting to worship him. This guy is evil. This guy's a psycho. So Christians, I'm sure you're starting to make the parallel here, but I want to be clear. If a person were to do this, you would think he was evil, threatening death if you did not worship him or do as he said. You would think he was crazy. You would think that he would need to be put down or separated from people or in prison or what have you. But when your God offers you fire insurance, essentially, telling you you won't go to hell, that you'll actually get to go to heaven, and all you have to do is worship him and do as he says, he is the greatest man on earth, or greatest God on earth. He is such an omnibenevolent being. How grateful are we that he would offer this to us undeserving people. So Christians, that's what you're working with. I understand that not all Christians believe in hell, or they believe in some other punishment that, for some examples, are that you are just separate from God, that you just actually just get obliterated, just death instantly, just dead, nothing else. And so I'm trying not to speak for every one of the 40,000 plus denominations and how they feel about God, but for the God of the Christian that does believe in hell or anything related to this, it's you who I'm talking to. So my question to you is, why doesn't that bother you? Why is that not make you angry? Why is it okay for God to do something that a person couldn't do? And why do you put a special favor towards God that you wouldn't pay to a human doing a similar thing? Are you just afraid? Do you really still think that he's fully perfect? Or are you afraid to admit that he may not be? Or are you maybe part of the camp that says that, why does the pot have the right to make the judgment about the potter? Or, I can't remember exactly how that scripture goes. Is that your reason? I mean, because if that's the case, then it's still a bit of fear. Reverence, I guess you could call it. But it's still fear. You should never be afraid. You should never be afraid of your God that says that he loves you. But it seems to be a really good tactic